Welcome to Brain Sprouts, Episode 1. My name is Jose. And your name?
My name is Anthony.
That's right. And this is just
Am I
Brain
looking at the
Sprouts.
camera?
Yeah,
Okay.
it can be either way. It's strategic. No, this is fine.
Okay.
It's so our producer Alyssa, this is our first episode. This should all be in the episode because it's very natural. It's very, very comfortable.
Okay. I'll start it now.
Well, it makes sense because we're talking about anxiety, right? So obviously we're a little anxious starting our very first episode of the podcast.
Sure I am.
Yeah. So we want to discuss anxiety and basically some stories relating to anxiety. But first of all, I mean, let's be honest. I'm not smart enough to sit here and tell you from the top of my head how to define anxiety, but I did do some research. I did a little bit of research for this podcast, believe it or not. According to medlineplus.gov, anxiety is a feeling of fear, dread, and uneasiness. I think a lot of people can relate to that. It might cause you to sweat, feel restless and tense, and have a rapid heartbeat. It can be a normal reaction to stress. For example, you might feel anxious when faced with a difficult problem at work, as we are currently right now, before taking a test, or before making an important decision. It could help you to cope. The anxiety may give you a boost of energy or even help you focus. But for people with anxiety disorders, the fear is not temporary and can be overwhelming. Alyssa, do you relate to any of that?
Yeah, I relate a little bit to anxiety, quite a bit. I think the feeling of like you're gonna die.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. It gets that intense. And there are different types of anxiety disorders, such as generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. People with GAD worry about ordinary issues such as health, money, work, and family. But their worries are excessive, and they have them almost every day for at least 6 months. There's panic disorder. People with panic disorder have panic attacks. These are sudden, repeated periods of intense fear when there is no danger. The attacks come on quickly and can last several minutes or more. There are also phobias. People with phobias have an intense fear of something that poses little or no actual danger. Their fear may be about spiders, flying, going to crowded places, or being in social situations, known as social anxiety. I have a deadly phobia of wasps. Yeah, I'm terrified of wasps. I think it comes from the first memory I have as a child is seeing my aunt get stung by a wasp. Is this stung or is it bit? Do you know?
It's stung.
Okay. The first memory I
Some
have
do
is, getting stung by a wasp. And I remember seeing the big red mark on her leg. Traumatized me ever since. I've never been stung by a wasp.
So it didn't actually happen to you. You just saw it happen, and ever since then you said, oh, I don't want that to happen to me.
So I stay away from them as much as I can. I don't mess with wasps. I don't mess with bees. I don't mess with mosquitoes. I don't mess with anything that flies and can sting you or bite you. It just... We don't mesh. There are also other subsets of anxiety, such as separation anxiety, selective mutism, and substance-induced anxiety disorder. Anxiety can be normal in stressful situations, such as public speaking or taking a test. Anxiety is only an indicator of underlying disease when feelings become excessive, all-consuming, and interfere with daily living. So, Anthony, I asked you to come prepared with a story about a time that you have experienced anxiety. Do you have that for us?
I do.
Okay, let's hear what you got.
So kind of borrowing on what you were talking about earlier with phobias, my phobia is flying. I actually travel a lot, so it tends to happen to me a little bit more often, but I will always choose to drive before flying. If it's 3, 4, 5 hours away, I'll drive. I'm perfectly fine with driving 5 hours, 8 hours even. But the few times that I've had to fly, I always get severe anxiety because I have a fear of heights that couples with the fear of flying. So I don't like to be in tall buildings. I don't like looking out windows. It makes my heart flutter. I just get heart palpitations. I start sweating. I get really clammy, and I immediately black away. And it's kind of to the point where you avoid going places that are tall up, or I try to avoid as much as I can flying. And when I do, I will go into a plane not having slept the night before because I'm so preoccupied with the idea of, being afraid of flying that I can't sleep.
Wow.
I won't be able to sleep on a plane ride. The last time I had gone to Japan's about a 14-hour plane flight. I didn't sleep that entire time. I was awake the entire time. I wasn't comfortable. And if I slept, it was me closing my eyes trying to sleep. But of course, I'm too, I'm too anxious to sleep. And especially the worst two parts of flying are taking off and landing. So at those points, I'm literally gripping on my seat as hard as I can and just trying to clench everything and not see anything. Sometimes I'll put my phone out so like I don't have to look. For me, it's interesting. If I see images of, outside of planes, or if I see maybe the outside of a building from video, I don't have the same feeling. But as soon as I look myself and I look down out the window, or if I look down out, at the floor,
it's scary.
I'll freak out. So I'll just put my camera out. The camera will look for me, and I don't have to do it. I'll just sit here like this.
There you go.
With the camera. It's like, I don't want to look. The camera's going to look for me. I can look, after we're done.
Yeah.
And I'll be fine. Especially landing or taking off, because you never. Those are the scary times, right? That's when you're just like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna go up. I don't know if we're going down. Everything's shaking, and that's all you can think about.
Yeah.
And also turbulence.
Yes.
That's
the scariest thing ever.
If any of you have had severe turbulence to the point where your plane is actually going sideways, I've been in that.
Yikes.
And I can tell you, my fingertips were white from how hard I was grabbing onto the seat. And it's just so uncomfortable because I don't like roller coasters. So for a lot of people, that's like, oh, it's just like being in a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I don't like that. I don't like that feeling. I don't want to be in a roller coaster. I don't want to feel that feeling in my stomach, that pit in your stomach that everyone's, oh, you enjoy that when you go in free fall.
Yeah.
I don't like that. So it's always been, for me, flying causes me so much anxiety. I can't sleep before. I can't sleep during.
After maybe?
After I'll sleep just because the adrenaline kind of drops down.
Yeah.
And I'll pass out. So usually as soon as I get, there was a time where we went to Ohio, and I didn't sleep on the plane ride, but I hadn't slept before, so I was going about 23 hours without sleep.
Yikes.
We were driving from LAX back to Bakersfield to the point where I told my friend, just so you know, I'm not dropping you off. I'm going straight to my house, and I'm going to sleep because I'm about to pass out. So please get a ride, because I won't be able to take you home. I was literally like, I was so exhausted from not sleeping and the plane ride that I could barely drive home. So it's just, you have to realize these are things that your body is going to do. And so you kind of have to prepare yourself. Like you have to prep. Oh, I know I'm not going to sleep. Oh, I know I'm going to need this. So a lot of times I'll either like medicate, get like some melatonin or something to help me get some relaxed sleep. Other things I figured out was like doing something to distract myself. So you got to find ways to either help prepare yourself, because you're going to get on this plane. You have to take this plane. You can't get to Japan any other way. I mean, maybe a boat in 4 months.
Swimming, maybe. Well,
swim.
Funny enough, I actually experienced turbulence not too long ago. I went to Oklahoma to visit my friend. The flight there wasn't that bad, and I'm actually not afraid of like heights necessarily or flying. But when I came back, the flight back to Bakersfield, the turbulence was absolutely crazy. People were praying, people were crying. It got to that point. And even to this day, like, I still rather do that than drive 20 hours. Like, it's just not me. Like, I'd rather risk just dying in a fiery plane crash than driving 20 hours. I just can't do it.
This is wood, right?
Yeah. Right. Knock on wood. But I'll tell a quick story, and then we'll end this segment. For me, it's actually not a phobia necessarily. It's more so my awkwardness, I guess, that I used to have back in the day, because I had a we'll say a baby mama, we'll call her that, my ex-girlfriend, right? So she left me, and it left me in a very deep depression, right? So when I was working at a grocery store, I was just used to just keeping to myself. Like, nobody ever really talked to me. Like, women wouldn't talk to me. And then one time a woman said something to me, and I was just so taken aback that I literally was silent. I couldn't say a single word.
Deer in the headlights.
Yes, exactly. And she just kind of looked at me like, okay, like you're weird, that you're not saying anything. It was just very casual. She was like, oh, you're still here, because she saw me earlier and I was working, and I was just like I was just frozen. I didn't say anything. So it was just an anxiety and awkwardness. It was very, very bad. And I still remember that to this day. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and read some stories of people that have overcome anxiety. And maybe not in conventional ways, because people are usually used to, taking pills or maybe having some type of therapy. But these are actually, I haven't even read them, to be honest with you. I kind of looked up stories about anxiety, and I just found them on Reddit. This one's from 13 years ago, so these are kind of like wild cards, and we'll see what happens. This is blind. I haven't really read these. I probably should have vetted or had Alyssa vet them before. I don't know. This is posted to Ask Me Anything. Pretty popular subreddit, right? This is from user Be Like Water from 13 years ago. I healed myself of deep depression and severe anxiety by using my own mind and educating myself about the problem. No drugs or third-party psychotherapy were involved in the healing process. So that title just kind of, it's interesting, right? So let's see what the guy has to say. I'm a 38-year-old male. I am not a Scientologist. About 10 years ago, I was living in the Portland, Oregon area, and I was in an extreme downward spiral toward a mental breakdown or worse. Depression washed over me each morning when I woke up, and sometimes I was too far under it to even get out of bed. I rarely left my house. I was screaming for help on the inside, but not much came out of my mouth. I almost lost my marriage, job, and friends because my give-a-damn was busted, quite literally. I had frequent panic attacks that were so severe I sometimes would have to pull my car over to the side of the road because I could no longer drive. I thought I was going to die or go insane each time, sometimes several attacks per day. The one time I tried an anti-anxiety medicine, it seemed to magnify my anxiety significantly, and I had the worst panic attack of them all. I was so mentally fried afterwards that I laid in bed in my apartment shaking and tweaking for 2 days. Yikes. Have you ever taken any medication, for anything?
I mean, for anything.
Yeah, well, I mean,
for
other than Tylenol,
yeah,
right? Of course, yeah.
Not for any, anxiety or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine to have it that severe that you can't even take pills because it just makes it worse. This is the main reason I never took another pill for my condition again. As far as therapy goes, I simply couldn't afford it and had no insurance. Seems to be a, fair bunch of people that can relate to that. Later, I found out that depression and anxiety actually runs on my mother's side of the family. My mother and at least one of my brothers has also had to deal with it, but I don't believe they were hit by it as hard as I was. Today, I love my life and my family. I explore all kinds of interesting subjects, especially ones that teach me about how my brain works and human potential. If I could, I would live forever and just spend my time learning and exploring. I credit myself for healing by thinking my way out of the problem, along with exercise and sun therapy. So it's interesting because I actually just watched the Doctor Strange, not the new one, but the original one, the old one, because my girlfriend had never watched it before, so we kind of, if we're going to watch the new movie that just came out, we got to watch the first one, right? So, and it talks about that concept of healing the body through the mind, right? Because Doctor Strange had that problem. Have you seen the movie?
Yes.
Okay. So he has the problem, his hands, he got into a big accident that they were shot. He couldn't use his hands anymore. He was a surgeon. And so he went to, I forgot, Tibet or something like that, and where the Grand Wizard, I'm forgetting all the names, I'm sorry, I'm bad about it, but
Sorcerer Supreme.
the Sorcerer Supreme, there you go, thank you, Alyssa. And she was just basically introducing the concept of healing your mind before healing your body. And I always thought that's very interesting because your mind and your body are very connected, right? Or at least that's how I see it. So the fact that someone talked about that is very interesting to me. And he adds here with some edits, he says, okay, the first thing I want to say here is that I'm not a doctor. I recommend anyone suffering from depression and anxiety seeks professional help. The meds didn't work for me, but they do work for others. I personally cannot recommend them due to my experience with them, but this does not mean they won't work for you. Furthermore, any information I post on this page is for educational purposes only. I only want to share my experience. And he also adds, when I say that I had no drugs or psychotherapy above, I mean that I did not heal through professional means. One could easily argue that I gave myself a form of psychotherapy, and I would tend to agree. I am not putting drugs or professional help down. Drugs work for many people, as does therapy. I had a strong bad reaction to antidepressants, so I stopped taking them. I could not afford therapy at the time, but I have no doubt it would have helped me. All I am doing here is talking a little about my personal experience on this matter in hopes that it may bring a little insight into the mind of someone who has suffered it. Please do not take my post as some sort of arrogant belief that everyone can heal without modern medical science. If you read my post, you will see that this is not my perspective at all.
So what it sounds like to me is that that person kind of tapped into what's known as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right.
Well, a lot of times people who take this therapy, need guidance, but you can actually go and do it yourself.
Yeah.
He probably tapped in a little bit of that, learning about how his own mind, his own brain thinks about things, and learning about how he reacts to things. He or she, actually, I have no idea.
Yeah.
How they react to something allows them to, have better introspective, like he said. And then, everyone's brain chemistry is different, so medication has varying effects on each person. So it's just something that, he seems to have, I keep saying they have seemed to have found a balance in figuring out, what my brain needs, what I need for myself, and that's kind of helped them out. And, they said sun therapy, being out in the sun really helps.
Yeah.
And then, being a part of your family, having community, having a sense of, belongingness to your family really does help. A lot of people who suffer from anxiety, depression, tend to, isolate themselves or are isolated. And so gaining some warmth that way also helps a lot. So
Definitely.
I'm glad for this person that they're able to do that.
And I can kind of share a little bit about my own experience because I've fought depression for a very long time. And I think what really helped me kind of get out of that funk was getting out into the world, like actually human communication, because you can sit at home all day by yourself. You can talk to people on the phone, you can talk to people on the computer, but it's not at all the same as physical, like actually going out and speaking to a live human being. It's just the brain, I feel like it needs that. Again, we're not professionals here, but I just feel like the brain just needs that human communication, like real life communication. Yeah, so I always found like the cognitive behavioral therapy, we can talk about. It's based on several core principles. I actually did research on this, including psychological problems are based in part on faulty or unhelpful ways of thinking. Another one is psychological problems are based in part on learned patterns of unhelpful behavior. And people suffering from psychological problems can learn better ways of coping with them, thereby relieving their symptoms and becoming more effective in their lives. This, I think, is it's kind of a concept that can be controversial, I think, because a lot of people I find, they believe in medication and that's it, that's the only way. But I think if you heal your mind, like we talked about with Dr. Strange, like you could potentially do a lot of good for yourself, even that you don't even know. So.
And at the same time, I think medication doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main issues, is not everything is, helped with medication. A lot of people are, but then there's a lot of people who aren't. That's why it's always best to get professional help so that you can kind of go on that journey with someone that can, oversee what's going on. You're like, okay, maybe this medication's not working. We'll try a different one. Or this dose is not working. We'll try a different one. Or you might not be one of the people that get help from that type of medication. They can try alternate treatments. So, rather than kind of doing a lot of guesswork, your mental health professional might be able to, help narrow down what might be able to help you the best. So.
And we'd love to hear stories from you. If you want to leave a comment sharing anything about, any anxiety you've felt, any depression, I'd love to hear that. And we can potentially read it on future episodes of the podcast.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe up here for more videos on mental health. For our most recent video, you can click right over here. For more information on improving your quality of life, visit pheccinc.com.